The world around us is hostile to the Word of God and to biblical values, but we are called to be salt and light, to stand for truth in a decaying culture. We are not called to run from the fire, but be willing to step into the fire. God has placed you at this time in history on purpose and for a purpose. Join us as we get better equipped to address civics and culture from a biblical worldview. Welcome to Into the Fire, powered by Dream City Church. Let's welcome our hosts, Debi and Sam.
Today's topic is discipleship versus indoctrination, and we're joined by Kris Hutson, who's the superintendent of Dream City Christian. Is that the correct title now, or is it?
Yeah, Dream City Christian
Dream
Schools.
City Christian Schools.
Plural.
Schools, because there's two, working on three right now, and it's
right.
Also a TPUSA Academy,
That's
right?
Turning Point Academy.
Turning Point Academy. So we're going to talk about all of that, but we're so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so just really quick before we get into the questions about our topic, if you could just introduce yourself, who you are, your family, whatever you want to share with us today on kind of a personal level.
I've been married for 40 years to Debbie, who I was known for that time here as the flute player's husband in the church. I've been in the church for 34 years, and that's who I am. Two wonderful children, one in L.A. or the L.A. area, Aurora Hills, with two grandchildren, and the other one in Nashville with one grandchild.
Praise God.
It's all awesome. I've been the orchestra conductor here for Christmas, Celebration of Christmas, for over 25 years, involved in that for 34 as well. Our children grew up here, going through the whole production phases they have here at Dream City. I was a professional educator, a high school band director, orchestra leader for 29 years of that.
Wow.
I took 6 years in between there to be associate pastor, music pastor here, right in the middle of all that, and then wound up in administration. And then Dream City called me, and here I am, 3 years.
There you go. That's a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of stuff.
If you've ever been to the Christmas show, you've seen him and his, light up ties and things.
He's the one down there.
You ever have different things that light up.
People say, I think I've seen you. I turn around and do this because they see the back of my head.
They're like, I knew I saw you somewhere.
That's right. Yeah, I know you from the back of your head.
There you go.
That's so funny.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, let's start with what is a TPUSA Academy and how did you see that as a benefit to education?
Well, a Turning Point Academy affiliate, we ascribe to the ideologies of Turning Point. We're not a political organization, but people that see us and come to us for Turning Point is that we are politically aligned, very conservative. The CRT is not a good thing. We are patriot-driven. We are conservative. There's absolute truth.
Yep.
You're born a boy or a girl, and you stay that way.
Yes.
Those type of, they know that when they walk through our doors, they're getting that from all our instruction.
Common sense.
Yes.
Just very
You would hope. One would hope.
Who knew that would make a comeback, right?
Yeah.
Right. So why should parents consider Christian education over sending them to public schools like we have been?
Well, the title of our episode, Indoctrination.
Yep.
I think for over like 80 years, 100 years, we have been moved over into an indoctrination process that we just didn't realize was happening. It was very intentional, and it took the Word of God, it took creation, it took the story of who we are about out of the school, and with that inserted human secularism, where there is no God, you make your own choices. It's up to you. What do you think? And relative moralism, just rampant.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, and I mean, it has been. So I also am an educator, right? I have a master's degree in education. I've taught everything from preschool to community college over the last 30 plus years. I taught in public school. That's how I started teaching in public elementary school. And so I've seen that too. And what's crazy too, looking back, is when I went to college to become an educator, I was not a Christian at that time, and I got saved later. But I kind of try to remember and look back at that. One of the issues is that even when you have Christians or you have schools that, okay, well, this school isn't that bad, or, these certain things. And we've talked about that some on the show, that some schools are worse than others, some districts are worse than others. It really kind of is who knows? Some classrooms are worse than others. It's kind of a grab bag, right? But those schools that are teaching teachers are extremely radical, a lot of them, even just in our own state, right? ASU and U of A, I went to both of those schools. They're both very radical as far as what they're teaching. And again, I think that's been intentional. I mean, I know it's been intentional that they're training teachers to train the next generation to hate God, to hate America, to
keep God out of school.
To keep God out of school, all of those things. Yeah.
And since COVID, there's been an exodus of teachers and educators. But that was the exodus of the good teachers, the conservative teachers, the ones that had morals, had values, and they just said, I'm out. I can't fight the system anymore because the system was well entrenched. NEA is one of the biggest liberal organizations, the National Educators Association, just extremely liberal in their agenda. And you're kind of forced to be a member of that if you want the insurance, if you want the protection, and all that. And it's this voice of unreason.
The lady, what is her name? I don't even remember. I literally just this morning was watching, and she's in LA in front of burning cars and whatever, screaming at the top of the head of the NEA.
Right.
And they were it's like, what does this have to do with? I don't understand the optic. Like, it's just, but I mean, that's just a separate, but yeah, you are correct. That is it's an extremely, and what I've seen even, and I know you and I both know some of the same people who I think this has affected, but you see people who are Christians who are in there, but then it's like after years and years and years of receiving these emails and the propaganda and the whatever, you see people in the education field start to get farther and farther and farther left.
Yes.
I've seen it in people that I know that, 10, 15 years ago, you weren't thinking this way. And it's interesting how it's like something about being in that field tends to kind of push. So then what is that doing?
Well, they push.
Yeah.
And if there's no resistance,
yes.
the door's open.
Well, they're the only voice.
Right, they're the only voice.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the parents are just really not aware of what's happening in that classroom. If you're just getting in the car and going, hey, how was school today? Great. And there's no more conversation.
Yes. Right.
I mean, you need to ask why like 5 times. Why? Well, why? You keep going dig down deep into your child as to what happened at school today and what actually was taught. And did anything kind of put up a red flag, and have those conversations. I think that's critical if you're dropping your kid off for 6 or 7 hours a day at a public school. Now, to go back to your point on indoctrination, you can have wonderful schools, suburbs, and all my school. And I think there's a perception of, well, what I see on TV, that's not my school.
Yeah.
That's not my neighborhood. Those aren't the teachers my child has. But you really don't know what teacher your child has that well. They're not Christian. They may not believe in God. And you're dropping your child off for 7 hours to especially elementary. These children love elementary teachers, and they're there the whole time. And if that teacher has more time with your child than you do, and if they don't even believe in the story of creation and the story of the biblical worldview, then you are going down a dark road very quickly. Yeah. And the other side of that, even if you have a Christian teacher, the curriculum is indoctrinated against us. It's biased. It's written in a biased way. So when you read the book, when you read the stories, there is not a biblical worldview in that. And when you see something in print and the kids are reading the stories and the teacher's teaching and it's from a human secular point of view, you are, again, stacking the deck against raising a kid successfully.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, who wrote the curriculum, because no matter how great your teacher is, if they're the ones being told that they need to teach this, who is it coming from and whose words it's stemming from?
Well, and we know too from like the public schools on some of the episodes that we've done, it's difficult for parents to even find out. You were saying like, okay, the kids don't give you a 1 or 2 word answer about how their school day was, right? Especially boys. But those, it's just like, how was it good? What did you learn? Nothing, like math. I don't know. They don't say a whole lot. And so it's hard to find out from the kids, but then also with even finding out what's in the books, like they fight you on trying to find or make it difficult for parents to see what is in the books and what the curriculum is. A lot of those books don't come home, and so if you don't know what's in them, it is difficult to find out what that is. And people they don't think about it, because it's like when I grew up, school was innocuous, right? And
that kind of leads me into my next question of like common misconceptions parents can have about sending their children to public school.
Misconceptions?
Yeah.
it's how it was when they were in school.
Yeah.
It's just like when I was there, and they're trying to relive, some parents are trying to relive their childhood through their child, but they're just thinking it's the same parameters, it's the same setup, it's the same moral code. I mean, you've seen the things on Facebook, of the common problems in 1950 and 60 was chewing gum.
Right.
And now it's gender confusion and hitting the teacher and all these things. And that's another thing about dropping your child off at a public school is their classmates. If there's gender confusion with a classmate, it's okay in a public school. Yeah. And they don't do anything about it. They don't notify parents. That's just who they are. And you keep moving down the road, and your child is sitting next to someone who could think they're a dog these days, or a cat.
Or a cat. Those are the furry.
Being a furry. I mean, those are, and that's, again, people listening to this right now are going, that's not my school. That is our community. That is Phoenix. It happens in Phoenix. Yeah. And it happens in the suburbs. And so I'm just wave the red flag. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, well, I even remember I was homeschooled through high school, but I got to play sports at the local public high school.
Yep.
And there were literally a group of kids who were furries back in 2015.
Oh, wow.
Just outside. And I was like, oh, what's going on? My friends would be like, oh, they're cats. And I was like, wait, everybody knows this?
And they're okay with it? That's the question.
This is accepted. It's
right. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to head to the field. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a real thing.
It is a real thing. And again, it's tough because how does we don't know how to navigate that stuff, but how does a child know how to navigate that? And when they're being told that it's okay and it's acceptable and you have to call them this pronoun or this new name or whatever it is. Yeah.
And I'd like to bring another point in that as your child gets older and you trust your child, the other misconception is my child can handle that.
Yes.
They're the salt of the earth. We're going to go in and save the school. Well, studies show that in your 20s, your head is still developing, your mind's still going, you're still maturing, and your child can be derailed.
Yes.
No matter how strong, because an hour at church on Tuesdays for youth, an hour at church on Sunday, and that's all you get. They're there 7, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and if they're in sports, you're living there.
Right.
It's just overwhelming.
Yes.
Yeah. So you were talking about when we were having our conversation before the show about the number of hours that kids spend at school versus what was that?
The number is 16,000. You have 16,000 hours from kindergarten to 12th grade in the school system. That is the bulk of the time. Once you hit kindergarten, I mean, you're now in school longer than you are at home other than sleeping.
Right.
And when you're a child, again, in elementary, the number one worldview influencer are the parents, family unit. As you move forward and you give them this,
cell phone.
You give them the cell phone, then you have just changed the dynamic immensely. So now media is now the number one influencer of worldview, period. Not family, not church, not even friends, because they text their friends these days. They don't even talk to their friends. So it's all through the phone. So if they have access to that phone, as soon as that happens, media becomes the influencer. And we know what is happening in media and what they're getting. And it's just, it's downhill fast for them.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So why would it be important for parents to stay engaged with what's happening like on a school board or in their community politically in order to help, I guess, combat this, right?
So even if your kids are at a Christian school, right?
Yeah.
We should be paying attention to what's happening in the world around us and in that.
Yeah. Well, it's again, we encourage dialogue with the teacher.
Yeah.
And I've been in schools where actually the dialogue stopped at the door. You don't even, we don't want your involvement anymore, you know? And again, elementary school teachers, it's hugs and kisses and emails all the time and newsletters and volunteers in the classroom. But when you move up to those upper grades, when they start going around in different classrooms and you have 5 or 6 or 7 different teachers, that relationship goes away. Well, it's asking the questions. It's emailing your teachers. It's talking. It's asking your children, what are you studying? Show me the book. What are you working on in homework? What did you talk about? Well, and get in a conversation and see what they're getting out of the class. I just think communication is the number one, and relationships.
Which I think is true no matter where you go to school, right? If you're at a Christian school, if you're homeschooling, if you're online, if you're at a public, whatever it is, that communication, and kind of to tweak your question a little bit. So with that, so how do our state laws affect your ability to do what you're doing at Dream City Christian?
Amazingly non-existent. It's wonderful. Private schools do not have very much jurisdiction over the state.
And so is that unique to Arizona, do you think? Or is that typical?
I think it probably is.
Yeah.
I think it probably is.
Because Arizona has pretty good, again, we have an election in 2026. This is the drum I've been beating because it's the governor, the state legislator, the state legislature, the governor, secretary of state, AG, all at the state level. Yep. So one of the things that they really want to do in Arizona, I know, is to go in and make that harder. They want to make it harder for kids to go to Christian school. They want to make it harder for kids to homeschool. They want to make it harder for kids to change their public school. They want to force them into, you have to go to this school under this thing and, we tell you what to do. And so right now, it's really amazing.
Right. It's always a 2-year cycle.
Right.
We're always on a 2-year cycle, especially when we're on this borderline of we have 2 extra seats right now.
Yeah.
We were ahead by 2. Last
close,
cycle, we're ahead by 1. So it's very important that we stay politically active and we get the right people in. And again, the right communication, because the left is very deceitful in how they pitch things, and the propaganda that they put out seems like it's not to your advantage, but it's our right. It's your right. Let's go fundamental.
Right.
God gave you your children.
Yes.
It is your responsibility to raise them and educate them. Period. And that's what the Christian school and private schools do. Is that we come alongside the parent to raise them to do their job.
Right.
Public schools mentality is we know better. You stay there, bring them to us, and let us teach them, indoctrinate them, and so it's a foundational philosophical difference.
Yeah. Well, there was just a Catalina, I think it was Catalina Foothills or somewhere near Tucson, where there was just a clip that was going around of a health teacher in a public school talking about why it was talking about LGBTQ issues in sex education or in a health class or something. But he was basically telling the kids not to listen to their church and not to listen to their parents, not because they don't understand, you should be listening to us. And so those are the kind of things that we're fighting against in that system. And then you have people who they don't like it that we can use ESAs and STOs to help kids go to private school.
And that's a huge misnomer about what that money is being used for and how they're just throwing lies out.
Right. Yeah. Because I know I've heard that a lot too. It's they want to say that, okay, you shouldn't be able to, or that it's only rich kids that are using that money to go to a private.
Absolutely not.
It's not. That's not your school is not full of.
No,
right.
we're not.
And a lot of those kids would not be able to choose that kind of education if it were not for.
Oh, that's exactly right.
Right. So I'm
the
sure
the rich go there because they can, and that's what they choose.
Right.
This allows every child the opportunity for a private education.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So there's 2 different ways, and you can jump in and correct me because you deal with this more than I've dealt with it a lot, but. So there's 2 different ways that you can use taxpayer money to help you go to a different type of education. So some people use it for homeschooling. ESAs can be used for either homeschooling or private education, and then STOs can be used for private education. And so it's basically redistributing those tax dollars which follow the child anyway. So if your child is not in a public school, that money is not going to that public school. And it's not all of the money, because there is still some money that comes in, even if those kids are not, it's seats, bodies and seats, right? So they do get money regardless, and they're not losing out on money because those kids are not there.
If your child goes to a public school, they're going to get X amount of dollars. If they go to a private school,
they get half.
They get about half of it.
Yeah.
So that money is still out there. Your tax dollars are still in the district.
Yes.
To be used just for whoever and for whatever the district wants to use. So you're still not getting the full punch of your tax dollars. And when they say public funds, you're using public funds for private, it's your money.
Right.
Public, you're the public. And so that misnomer just drives me nuts.
It does.
You're public, it's your money.
Right.
I like that.
And so whether you have children or not, if you're a taxpayer, your money, you're funding public education,
That's correct.
right? Mm-hmm. So that money is going somewhere. And so what he's talking about is like with the ESAs, you get half of that money, right? That roughly half of that money that follows the student and can be used for whatever they need. If they need to be in some kind of special program because of special needs, if they want to homeschool, if they want to go to a private school, they can use that money to help fund that education because it's money that the state would have used on them to go to a public school. And so they're still being educated, right? So it's not, the money is being used for what it was supposed to be used for, which is education. STOs are where people can designate their tax dollars that go toward education to go to a specific organization that gives scholarships or to a particular student. So you have a lot of people within the church community that I know a lot of this, the kids that go to Dream City Christian that use.
About 30 STOs in the state, and you can give, it's a dollar for dollar
organizations
tax credit
that go,
for a family to give, and you can designate the school or designate a person in the school, and they can pay for their entire tuition. You get the entire amount paid for if you do it right. And then there's a corporate side as well that corporates can give hundreds of thousands of dollars for tax shelter and tax credits into the same organization, and one is based on income, so one is depending on the income of the family. You qualify, but the other is not. It doesn't matter what you make, as long as you can use the.
You can find people that are willing to give their tax credits.
Buckets of STO monies.
Yes.
And so it's a really great way to help people that would not be able to afford to do, especially with like a private school. That it is more expensive, right? So. Again, are your kids worth it, right?
We've had the SEOs for years and years.
Yeah. We were the first state to do that.
Franks did that legislation and came through. And then we followed with the ESA about 3 or 4 years ago. So we are one of the best states to live in
for school choice.
Yeah.
Because we not only have the options, and we have a lot of options. We have limited government interference. We don't have to, like he was saying, you don't have to check a bunch of boxes for private school. Same with homeschooling. You don't have to check a bunch of boxes. Parents aren't. There are other states where that's not the case for both of those things. And there's opportunities for families to use money, that taxpayer money, to help fund their child's education of their choice, right, of their choosing. So it really is a great place, but again, we need to keep it that way.
Right, I was going to say, now we know that this
we need to keep it that
permanent.
Way. It is not permanent.
It's not permanent.
It could go away in one state, one session, one election. Because the two things, I always say this, the two things that if they could get control, if the left could get total control of our state, of governor, legislature, we would have full funding of abortion and all of that stuff, right? Everything that goes with that, and all of the school choice stuff would be gone, because they hate both of those things. They can't stand it. They don't like it that families have opportunities and options to go to other places to go get a Christian education somewhere.
The longer we're here, the longer we take advantage of it, the more the constituency wants it. And
because there are a lot of people who use it.
There are a lot of people that use it.
And break down the misnomers.
From all political parties, right? Yeah. So there are a lot of people that use STOs and use ESA money to help their kids. So it's not a not a left-right issue from the parents' perspective. Right. It's not. It is from a state legislature perspective. It's very left-right. It's very polarized, but from parents and families and everyday people, it's pretty universal that parents want to be able to say where their kids go to school. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's so good. I always learn something new about ESAs every time I talk about them. Can you tell us a little bit more about Dream City Christian and kind of everything that you've built it up to?
I would love
the pillars,
Can you
right?
imagine that?
I know.
Yes.
Thanks for throwing the softball. I appreciate it.
We kind of set the the stage here. So let's talk about specifically Dream City.
We have a graphic that's phenomenal. I just love the graphic. It's based on discipleship. And matter of fact, that is this book from Barna, Raising Spiritual Champions. It's all about the spiritual development, the discipleship. It's our responsibility to disciple children. So we come alongside parents. And so the base of our graphic is discipleship. And we have a preschool, infant, all the way through senior and high school. So I tout, we have an 18-year discipleship program, in our place. And that's the 16,000 hours plus the first 4 years. So add those hours, So we love the kids and we pray with the kids, and our curriculum is biblically integrated. I think a good teacher, as you know, can take any book and supplement and make it work. It's hard sometimes to put the story of creation into every subject area. That's not the wheelhouse of an educator. So we spend the money on the Christian biblically integrated curriculum so that every lesson, every objective has that scriptural and has that biblical worldview integrated in the curriculum. So that's extremely important. Then we have 3 pillars. We have academic excellence, which, again, any school, all these charter schools popping up, and best thing since sliced bread, and they tout whatever test scores, and that's the pillar that everyone has. But a Christian school and us, we have 2 more pillars that parents need to understand will make the difference in their child. And that is the biblical worldview element. It's the academic A. B is biblical worldview. Everything. I mean, my kids, I do the first and last chapel every year, juniors high, and I start with biblical worldview, and I end with biblical worldview. The graduate speech that I give to the graduates is about the question you're going to ask in college. Whenever somebody says something you don't know what to say, you're going to think, what does the Bible say about that? What does the Bible say about that? That is the filter. We are trying to put filters in our children's brains that is biblical. The filter is the Word of God. And then the C is Christ-centered community. And that's where the teachers are Christian. Most of the students are Christian. We have an international program, and that's our discipleship program. We bring them in, and the missional part of it, but you're getting Christian friends and Christian community, and the activities are based on Christian activities, and themes are Christian themes, and it's just the community. And I had a parent that was telling a story at a dinner that they went to visit their kid's classroom in like 2nd grade or 1st grade, and one of the girls said something that she needed prayer. She said, and I thought it was going to be a nice little prayer, in Jesus' name. They sat there and prayed for that girl for like 5 minutes. These little 1st graders, they were just going at it, and praying. So
Love it.
I know it's teaching them how to deal with your problems and conflicts through a Christian filter. And then the top of the graphic is we're preparing them to be lifelong learners, but Christian leaders with worldview, the leaders with the Christian worldview, and servants. Got to serve and give of your time and love. So that's who we are, and everything that we do fits that graphic.
I love it, so important.
Is that enough? I can go.
No, that's so good. How can they find out? Do you guys have a website?
Of course we have a website, dreamcityschools.org.
Yes.
And you can go there and just dig in there and find all kinds of fun stuff. Even the handbook is in there. You can free for everyone to look at and see all the rules, all the regulations, everything we do. And all that stuff.
We're going to be
is the curriculum that you use your own curriculum then, or did you guys develop, or is it like a...
ACSI is the accreditation Association of Christian Schools International. They have purposeful design. We use some of those.
I've seen those,
And then BJU Press is the largest Christian publisher in the world. It's international, and we use most of their...
Those are both really great. I've used both of them. So,
so then it's really good.
Yes.
I like both of those. Did you have another question, or So so you have so we were talking before, but you've got the main campus is at
Glendale.
In Glendale, by the Glendale campus of Dream City Christian.
75th Avenue and 101.
Dream City Church.
Yes, correct.
And then Dream City Christian is attached to that Glendale campus of Dream City Church at 75th Avenue and the 101.
That's where the preschool is through seniors.
And then there's in Scottsdale just opened up this
3 years.
3 year. Oh, is it been 3? What the heck?
You blinked, Debbie.
I blinked. I'm telling you.
3 years at Scottsdale
it's
campus.
Like part of it is I'm getting old, and part of it is a COVID broke time, and so you can't tell whether something was.
That's a very small K6, and if you want a really small, like multiple, like 1 or 2 grades in one class, about 5, 10 kids in a class. That's the
so
intimate
good.
setting. It is awesome. Phenomenal test score growth with that.
That's good.
And it's just a wonderful little secret over there.
Those little
that people
small
don't know.
classes are wonderful.
I mean, even at the Glendale campus, we didn't know you were here. I mean, we got banners on the streets. I mean, I don't know how. You don't know we're here.
They didn't know they were
You go Google and we're there. You just talk about that.
And then there's a new one coming in the White Mountains.
We are hopefully in August 11th going to start a high school in the White Mountains. So you heard it here.
Amazing,
he
right?
just announced it Sunday. Put all the stuff out for interested parties.
For all those rich, right?
Oh yeah, for all those rich people up in the White Mountains. Yeah, it is a very.
See, this is where the misnomer
lovely,
comes,
I know,
right?
It's just a lovely
Christian education
middle
is so
class
important.
community up there of people that stay there year round. The Show Low Pine Top area.
Small town, little area. It's
They have a couple of schools up there that are K-8, and there's a need for 9-12.
That's awesome.
For high school Christians. So we're trying to fill that need. Pastor Barna, find a need
Yeah.
and fill it.
I
And
was
that's
like,
what
well,
we're
no,
doing.
and that's going to be on the
On the
church.
campus.
So is that the White Mountains one or the Apache reservation?
No, this
it's
not
the
not in San Carlos.
Not San Carlos,
This is
okay.
in the White Mountains at Pine Top Lakeside.
Gotcha.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why I was thinking it was on the reservation, but
No.
okay. So the White Mountains campus in Sholo.
Yep.
Okay, well
I
that's fantastic.
I know.
Awesome.
We're excited about
Yeah.
that.
I'll be excited. And you're
Yeah.
doing like a hybrid, a new type of program up there.
Hybrid up there, and
So
we will
good.
hopefully, again, I say hopefully because that's my plan,
Yeah.
but we're going to have an online
And
program
that's a
as
pretty
well.
conservative area
Yeah,
up
we're going
there
to have
too.
an at-home online program as well, launching in probably mid-July.
So it's probably going to be I mean, I would think that would, because that's a fairly conservative politically area up there, right? So that area, Navajo County, and that area is pretty conservative politically. So they'll probably love that, having
are.
that specific.
Before we even started talking about it, I mean, we had a meeting, and I don't know how. People started calling the church. Like the next week, hey, here you're having a school. Here you're going to start a school. We hadn't even said we're starting a school. How did you
I
find
only
that
just
out?
thought it.
I know. It is
Spread.
amazing. Amazing how fast it goes.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I was going to ask something else, and I can't remember what it was.
Well, I'm gonna, while you're thinking,
oh, yeah.
I'm going to say these books.
Tell us those books.
As far as a couple of books, this Alex Newman, Indoctrinating Our Children to Death, and our Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, wrote Battle for the American Mind. These are wonderful books on the indoctrination process over the last 100 years of our public school system. It goes into great detail. There's names like Horace Mann and John Dewey and the Rockefellers and all that, how they all came together. And John Dewey is like one of the founders of American education. He wrote the Humanist Manifesto.
Humanist Manifesto.
Yeah, for human secularism. He was one of the writers of that. And he was in charge of our school
The
system.
Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah, exactly. And he went to, they had a little consortium at Columbia University. And that's where the university started the indoctrination process. And it's just, and
that was,
they
in their
published
early
articles telling this is what we're doing. Published articles, and people just kind of didn't think, I don't know what, but asleep at the wheel.
Okay.
And we were asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, really and truly.
but
And then the
it's
other
great-
one
great
was
information.
Raising Spiritual
Yes,
Champions.
this is a great, Barna is the Cultural Research Center at ACU. He's known for decades as the research guru for Christian and for worldview. And I thought this was going to be a bunch of numbers, but he has scripturally talked about the discipleship responsibility of parents to children and put the stats to make you think, oh my goodness, I need to get it together here. Because a very low percentage, just like only 4% of parents in America have a biblical worldview.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing. And when you start thinking about it, he said, that means a lot of people in church don't have a worldview, but they think they have a worldview. And he defines a worldview, and they're the basics. It's like supreme being of God. We're all sinners. Salvation through Jesus Christ. Absolute truth. Those are the four of the 5 or 7 tenets. And, and it's just amazing. But the last chapter, as I was telling Debbie earlier, is, I want to get it right, fight for your children.
Mm-hmm.
And that's his battle cry, fight for the children.
Yeah.
And we can't just, I don't understand how you can just drop your child off for 6 or 7 hours a day and not know what the teacher's teaching. We were lulled to sleep in our generation.
We were, yeah.
And it was a little bit better, a little more conservative back then. But now there's options. You live in a state that has.
There weren't any options. When,
No, there were no options in my where I
There
grew
were,
up.
a couple of like parochial schools.
Yeah, I didn't even have that in my little town that I grew up in.
Well, I grew up in Phoenix, and it was like, a couple of Catholic high schools, but that was it. Like there weren't any options.
So to be in a state that is known to be the most supportive of school choice, and to not have your child in a Christian school, I really beg you to pray for that. Pray on that.
And look into how you can do it, because with the STO and the what is that called, the something tax organization,
student tuition organization.
Student tuition, thank you.
STO,
I was like, I couldn't think of what any of those letters stood for, except for the O, organization. Student tuition organization. There's several of them that are, great, that will help you. The Christian school admissions office will help you figure out how you can use ESA money, or
give us a call.
You can only use one or the other. So with ESAs and STO, you can only use either the tax credits or ESA. You can't use both.
Can't use both.
But it can either minimize or, in some cases, completely pay for. Especially with the STO money, if you work it, you do have to work it a little bit.
K-6 private education is less than the junior high school tuition rates across the state. So if you get $7,500 of ESA, which is about the max you're going to get, but everybody's guaranteed it. If you pay taxes in the state, you're guaranteed it. You're talking, a couple $100 a month if you do nothing else for your K-6 kid to go, or first through sixth grade child to go get a private education. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, so with that, we do need to fight for our kids, right? And whether you have kids in school or not, there's things you can do, right? Because we can, as a community, make sure, and as Christians, I think we're obligated to really protect that environment that we have here in Arizona of school choice and these ability for parents to choose where they're going, and that we can have some help funding, and that the government is kind of staying out of your,
Stay out of my lane.
Staying out of your lane, and out of parents that choose to homeschool out of their lane. And so we need to protect that at the ballot box, right? We need to make sure we know who's running for office and how they feel about that, because there are a lot of people who are currently in office or wanting to run for office that hate this school choice. They don't want parents to have those options. So that's a really big thing that we can all do, whether we have kids or not. And if you don't have kids, you can donate your tax dollars to someone else to help them go to school. And like you were saying, if you do have kids, look into those options.
I was leery, even before I got into private education. I was giving.
Because you and I were both in
years
public.
ago.
Yeah.
And the first year I did it, I was going, okay, I'm just going to do it because God's told me to do it. I didn't think it's really a dollar for dollar tax credit.
Yeah.
I mean, $1 in, $1, and you can wait till April 14th to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to wait that long for so you can literally write a check for $1,500 or whatever to an STO on April 14th, file your taxes, and get that $1,500 right back the next day.
They take that $1,500
It just takes it off the bottom line. There is no out-of-pocket expense to help any child.
Right, or a specific
education.
Child.
Right.
Yeah.
You can help anybody, or you can help a specific child if you know somebody that's struggling that would like to go to a private school.
But if you want to give that money, Dream City Schools, just write us down, and we will give it to the right child.
Yeah, because you can designate it for a specific school.
Just designate a school.
Yeah, so there are lots of options. If you don't know somebody specifically, you can give it to the school. So there's so many things that really everybody can do, even if you don't, whether or not you have kids. Probably you are always looking with all these schools too of hiring teachers if people want to.
Yes.
So if you're a teacher and you're a Christian teacher, sick of
very narrow band where
I'm
you're trying
sure
to
it
get
is,
a qualified teacher that's a Christian that believes your statement of faith that loves children.
Right.
And right now, as people are exiting education, it's harder. But we just don't let anybody in.
Yeah, which is good.
Which again is. Everyone comes across my table in the interview. We start the interview with their walk. Who are you in Christ? Who is Christ to you? Tell us about your salvation experience. Tell us about your testimony. Because any child at any point, one adult can derail them.
Yes.
And you're dropping your kid off, again, I'm going to say it, dropping your kid off every day to somebody that you don't know if it's derailing them or not. So we're trying to align everyone just to have the same thinking so that you don't confuse the child.
Yeah.
While they're trying to get it all sorted out, they're getting the same story. We're using Scripture to back it up. And that gives the stability that you're not going to get. This Christ-centered community is a big deal.
It is a big
It's a
deal.
big thing for children, especially after COVID. These kids are struggling.
Yeah.
They're struggling to communicate. They're struggling to find their way and
To
I just
have
think
real
consistent-
life relationships that aren't on a screen.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So good. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. We're glad
Great.
you were able to join us.
Thanks for asking.
And thank you for joining us on Into the Fire, powered by Dream City Church.
You can listen to this podcast on Apple and Spotify and follow us on social media to find all the info on the show notes. To learn more about Dream City Church, visit our website at dreamcitychurch.us. Thanks for listening.